cannot take the full credit for this. This is a team effort. There are segment managers like myself in every country in Europe where Wolters Kluwer is active, guided by our central team, which is based in Milan in Italy. So it's a very international and diverse team. And we basically have gotten together and we've defined what we consider customer profiles. So these are the kinds of people that we may encounter when selling our products. And certain products fit certain profiles better. So, and we've given them names as well. So they're Brenda and Fiona and Bert, I think. I don't remember the exact names. But what we use that for is as talking points so that we can tell our teams, okay, Fiona, she is a legal counsel. She works in an organization up to 5 legal people, legal FTEs in the legal team. That means her organization is of a low to medium complexity when it comes to doing certain types of business. That means they're in a certain revenue scale. So these are all elements like statistics of our persona that are averages of what's in there. They're never exactly right, but they're extremely useful to train and to get some ideas across. Because what we've seen based on conversations that we've had, based on research that we've done, but also research that other organizations have done, which we always gladly use as well, because yeah, it's trying to reinvent everything yourself is a great waste of time as well. But what we've then seen is that this person, this Fiona, is generally the firefighting kind of lawyer. It means that she reacts to problems coming in instead of being a proactive part of the organization, right? And one of her problems is having the issue that she can't find information quick enough, that she can't handle her workload. But that's really not enough. A value proposition isn't just about the problems, it's also about her desires. Maybe she wants to be a bigger part of the strategy of the organization. Maybe she would like to have a seat in the board one day, and she wants to exert some influence into what we call the C-suite. Or maybe she simply wants to reorganize the processes internally because she knows that she can get more efficiency if only she had the right things to help her along the way. And when you combine these dreams that she has as a person, so not even just as a professional person, because we've also seen that lawyers in corporate legal departments like to get home on time to their families. It's quite often a choice that they make to step from being a law firm lawyer into a corporate lawyer is to have less hours in their day. So combine all these personal elements, professional problems and professional gains that they would like to have together. And that's when you start molding your value proposition. But that's really only the definition of your customer. Then on the other side, you need to put your product against it, and where your product and whatever your product creates that matches that persona, that's where you have your story. That's where the fit is. And that's when where your value proposition really starts to shine. Now, I'm quite sure that we can fill several hours just talking about what a value proposition is. My personal favorite website in this case to use is strategizer.com with a Z, which is an extremely useful source, largely free, but you can also just buy their books, which are great as well, to get you started on the value proposition. And if you want to explain your sales team what it is, their 4-minute YouTube video is really the easiest way to explain it to anybody.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Maurice. And I guess there'll be, well, hopefully throughout the session, 1 or 2 other perhaps websites or indeed textbooks, articles that we can maybe direct you to, or maybe afterwards we can have some off-site chats about this. Helga, what about you? How can you actually change this behavior? Because if it's ingrained and it is the culture of the business, and this isn't an easy thing. You can't do this overnight, can you? Not possible.
No, I agree. I lecture at Nova, and I have a program that actually goes into the value proposition. And I see it with my own eyes that when we do the value proposition exercise, that it really is the hardest thing for people. It's that change of mindset. And you know what, Tony and Moritz, I had a bit of an idea, and I think it would be nice to actually get some audience participation to get involved, because I'll tell you what it sounds like, right? When you're introducing, typically when people are introducing themselves on a cold call, for example, or in an in-person meeting, they talk about their product and they don't realize that they're doing it. That's not a value proposition. Your product is not the value. You are not the value. Your company is not the value. The value is what you do for your customer, right? What is it that you do? How do you make their lives better, easier? How do you reduce risk? How do you help them find new opportunities? How do you help them to reach new results, right? This is what you actually have to shift your mindset to. And it begins with things like empathy and critical thinking and emotional intelligence. These are key soft skills in selling nowadays, more than anything. Selling is an art and a science, right? It's the art of influencing your buyer to make a decision, to know what motivates them, and it's the science of influencing the right buyer, right? So what I would say is that, first of all, as salespeople, we need to make the commitment to do better, okay? There is a definition by Einstein, that a quote by Einstein that I love, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna probably say it, use it a little bit of the wrong term, but he said the definition of insanity is doing Moritz is laughing. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, right? So we can't keep talking the same way to customers, right? And expect a different result. It's not going to work. So we need to make that commitment to learn and to be better, because nobody is born knowing these things. We all have to learn them, right? So make a commitment to learning how to transition from product to value, because there is a skill behind it. You don't just pick it up like that. And then practice it, right? You need to get it wrong a few times. Practice it in a safe place. For example, we do role models. We have an entire class on role models, on role modeling and scenarios and simulations. You need to get it wrong in a safe environment. You need to be shown what you're doing wrong, and that you can go out and practice it and actually do it in the real world. Now, the good news, the really, really good news, is that once you know how to do it, it's a skill that never leaves you. It never leaves you, and you can use it anywhere. It's a skill for life and for everything. But you need to change that mindset from product to problem, okay? This is not about the product. The client does not care about you. The prospect doesn't care about your company, and the prospect doesn't care about your product. They only care about what you can do for them. How can you resolve a problem for them?
Yeah.
So that's my...
Yeah, a couple of really interesting things there. I think one is about making mistakes. I picked up on that, and it made me think, gosh, when I was a buyer at Tesco, it was a little while ago, I do remember the buying director saying to me, young Douglas, we'll allow you to make a mistake with something once, but never learn from it and never ever make it again. And I have to say, I think that worked for the Tesco organization at the time, and they did overtake Sainsbury. It was one of many reasons why they did actually become the #1 supermarket in the UK. So I think that's really interesting. And then something else you said, Helga, sort of rings as well in my ear, this sort of art versus science.
Yeah.
I've put a little question up to all the folks out there to say, you know, art or science, any thoughts about this? Please type any thoughts you have on this. I think it's a bit of a topic all on its own, but it is interesting to understand how you perceive it. Is it a dark art, conjuring tricks, magical tricks, or is it really something that can be learned, and with practice, you can become very good at it, as Helga then sort of suggested there, that you can learn these skills. But it all comes from mindset. I would argue too, it comes from a mindset. It's a positive mindset. And that really is the first building block for all of this, in my view.
Well, and I think a lot of people inherently have this skill. They have this instinct, this talent to do this. But using some of the literature, some of the structure, some of the science behind it to then explain it to these people with instinct again, you literally see this light bulb turn, like, oh, so that's what I've been doing. Oh, that's how it works. The science gives structure to the art, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
And that's when people really start to shine, to move, to work in a structured way, and to really be able to communicate also to other salespeople, to educate each other of great findings, great elements that they've discovered. And that's when it really starts living in a team as well.
Yeah. It's asking us to have an open mind and be prepared to learn, I think, and to change, I think, is really important too. Okay,
I would just, if I may interrupt, there's a couple of comments here from the audience. I think they're very good comments. I don't know if you want to read them out.
Yeah, so we've got Sonia Inacio. Thank you very much, Sonia, for taking the plunge and being the first person to give us a comment today. I appreciate it, and we all appreciate that. Sonia's saying here, I think it's something that you can learn, but you have to have some hidden skills. Okay, maybe we could discover what some of those hidden skills are, perhaps. It'd be interesting to know. I think that it's an interesting point, because we often compare perhaps entrepreneurs with salespeople, with leaders, and we look at this sort of art science argument quite regularly, actually. So thank you for that one. And then we've got Marilia Lopez. I like to think it is in this way: the more I know myself, the better I know others. So I think that's a really good point. I would say, yeah, absolutely. If you do not understand yourself and how you are, your worldview, how you are as a person, then perhaps you can't be an authentic person, an authentic you to the buyer, the customer, whatever. Indeed, your personal life, and mind your business existence. And let's just, well, we've got a couple of comments coming through. Mano Alves, thank you, Mano. Both you're saying science showed the neural explanation. Okay, you need the art, your way of choosing the right words for the type of person you have in front of you. So maybe the adaptation part, so the adapted salesperson. So,
empathy.
Yeah, really good point. Sorry, Maritz?
The empathy to choose the right words and the right entrance to really understand who you have in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot's been written and said about understanding, one, yourself, but two, understanding the type of buyer who's in front of you. And I'm sure many of you looked at the different buyer behaviors. I think we've got a session, haven't we, on that as part of the program. Okay, I'll take one other here. We've got Anna Silva saying learnable, yes, but not just transactionally. I think you're saying transnationally, method science.
Transactionally.
Down to the paradigm. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So where's the foundation? I agree with that. Art's instinct, science improves instinct. Great. Okay, please keep them coming in. We'll try and keep an eye.
Good comments.
As they come in. Thanks for that. Okay, so if we can move on and sort of develop this a little bit further, if we may, how can you actually identify this perceived value? So if we're saying value is important and price is, you know, it's maybe part of a negotiation at some point, but let's not start there. How can we actually identify this perceived value? How's that done in Wolters Kluwer, Maurice? So how do you do it? How did the team do it?
It's always a difficult thing, and this is really finding that how the value, the perceived value of your product, how you can explain that to a customer is something that shifts continuously. So We've recently started moving this, is of course, due to COVID-19, where, and we also try to follow more generic trends. So what am I talking about in this regard? So we've seen, based on research that we've done, so we do research multiple times per year. We do international research, we do European level research, we do local level research. We do way too much research. But what we see there, what it helps us do is identify trends. So one thing we understand is that whatever happens in the legal market in the US, when it comes to at least corporate legal departments, will arrive in Europe generally 3 to 4 years later. That's almost a given. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's later, but it pays to keep an eye on that. So what we've seen in the US happen is something called the rise of the legal operations professional. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Watch one of my many other webinars and I can tell you all about it. But what they do, one of the things that these people do is they help redefine the processes that the legal department does, and they help identify where the money is flowing within the legal department with one simple goal: reduce the spend of the corporate legal department, because they are spending a lot of money and the chief finance officer, the CFO, simply wants to know what's happening with the money. He's happy to spend it if it's well spent, but he wants to know where it's flowing. So this tells us, this research, that this was happening in the US, this was coming to Europe. And lo and behold, our research in Europe shows that there's an increasing scrutiny on the expenditure of the legal departments. So this tells us, okay, we need to explain to them how the value that our product is creating, how they can then tie that into what the issues they have within their organization. Right. So if they need to prove to their CFO how they're spending their money and that they're doing so wisely, then we need to help create the story of the return on investment in such a way that my person that I want to sell to, which is the general counsel of the corporate legal department, that he or she, and it is these days 70% she and the rest of it is he. It's leveling off. It's becoming more women. So once again, it's good to know these numbers. But what we're seeing is that if we help them become able to tell the story of the return on investment of your product, of the value that your product's creating themselves, then they can pitch it internally and you can get a deal done. But if you just come to them and say, here's a product demo, look at my product, it doesn't fly into that next level of them being able to sell it internally again. And that's what's really useful here as well, is that if you use your value proposition correctly, if you help your customer then understand at least parts of what their own persona and their own value proposition looks like, help them define that return on investment, then they become the salespeople internally in the organization for you. And I don't know how it is in a lot of other markets. My experience is mainly in the legal market, but you need to create these ambassadors within your prospects organization in order to win deals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the bigger picture, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's what you're doing internally within your organization and getting supporters within the organization as much as externally, the various stakeholders that are going to be important from the purchasing side as well. So I agree 100% with that. Okay, Helga, have you got something to add on this point? So how do we actually go about this value, identifying this perceived value?
Okay, I love Mauriz's example because he's coming from a company that takes this discipline very, very, very seriously. So seriously, in fact, that they actually created a department where he's the head of to continuously do this work. I mean, this is how important this work is. Identifying and communicating your value proposition or value propositions is the single most introspective work that any company can do. But it is the most rewarding work that any company can do, because if you do not differentiate in your market, if there's nothing different about you, then why on earth should the customer or a prospect be interested in you? All you can do is compete on price. Okay, so let's take a step back. All right, how do you go about identifying your value? A good place to start is to understand, if you're lucky enough to have clients, start with that. Okay, go talk with them and find out from them, why did they buy from you? What was different about you? Why do they stay with you? What would they have done if they didn't go with your solution? These are all questions that, frankly, it's your basic homework, right? If you or your organization haven't done this, then by God, tomorrow, tomorrow, yes. Tomorrow, make that the first thing you do. Go have a coffee with your biggest fans, your best clients, and say to them, look, let me understand where I'm going right with you, because I want to help other people to achieve the same, So that's where I'll start. I would really understand from my own clients what it is that I'm doing right, from the point of view of how is it that I'm resolving their problems. And this is a continuous work, right? You need to know what's going on in your industry, right? So what you want to be doing is you want to be calling up your customer and you want to be telling them what's going on in their world. That's how you build credibility, okay? If somebody talks to me about prospecting, right? If any company says to me and talks to me about prospecting, why on earth would they be interested in me if I didn't have something new, something different, something important, something relevant, something that helps them to understand something that maybe they weren't even aware of? That's the point that you want to get to.
Yeah.
So think to yourself, how is it that I can learn about my market? How is it that I can learn about my client, about my client's client? Because I need, my head needs to be where my customer wants to be. Does my customer want to retain more clients? Does my customer want to grow in different markets? Does my customer want to achieve new results? Does my company want to do something specifically better? And why? Are you asking the why? That's the most important question you should be asking, is the why. The price at that point doesn't even come into the conversation. You're not talking about price, you're talking about resolving a problem. So start with that. Start about understanding your customers' worlds and how it is that you can improve them. Then you can think about your product, and then you can think about the features of your product, and then you can think about how those features become benefits, right? You never ever want to talk about the features of your product. It doesn't really matter, the features of your product, unless you're talking to a technical person, of course. Then it matters a lot, right? But you always want to, and you always want, your speech should also always be on what is it that that feature does for you. Again, that's the mindset. You could be, I was talking with somebody that does, they bring artificial intelligence into online events, right? And they differentiate themselves on by helping to really make online events really, take it to the next level. And the way that they were starting the conversation was, we help you, we sell software for your online event. That doesn't mean anything to me. But what means something to me is that, oh, I'm doing an online event called SalesShaker. And for me, the engagement with the audience is really, really important. I want the audience to be engaged, to feel like, you know, they're at the edge of their seat and they're part of the conversation. And if machine learning or robotics or artificial intelligence embedded in my event, if that helps me to achieve that, then that's what I want to talk about. Right? I don't want to talk about the price just yet. I want to know, how can you help me to achieve that? And Moritz, if it's okay with you, I thought that maybe we could do this with the audience. We could invite somebody from the audience to, you know, let us know what their product is and let us know how they would introduce themselves. And then maybe we could offer our opinion and show them how do we, how do we turn that into value. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I think we could try and do that a little later. I think for sure. I think point that's worth making that you both said eloquently is that the first building block of this is, what do they care about? What is important to your customer, your client? Yeah. So what are the
and Tony, I do beg your pardon. I did forget to say one thing, and it's very, very important. To conclude this exercise, right? So you're going from concerns, problems, risk, you know, you're understanding where your client is coming from, you're interviewing, you're having a conversation with your existing clients, for example, you're working with your marketing department to understand this as well. But there is something else that you want to get to as well. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this, and it's very important. You always want to get to your differentiators.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the stage progression really of the model that we're definitely talking about here. So yes, what do they care about? What the critical business issues are for them? What will be important to them, and what value do they rely on? I think these are questions that you've got to ask yourself about them, and you've got to find that out from them, as Maritz and
so I know we're running out of time, and I'm sorry to step in for a second, but I just want to add one thing to what Helga just said, and that's, there is going to be a huge part of what you find out about your customers and their needs and desires that is not covered by your product. And that right there is your product development, or a completely new product to add to your portfolio. I've seen it so many times in exercises where people say, oh, that's not really relevant because we don't do anything with that. No. It's super relevant, because either you need to know that it's not something that is in your value or in your value proposition, or you need to understand that it's something that might be in your competitor's value proposition. Because if they have it, that means their value proposition can be stronger if they properly articulate it. So either know about it and have a great story about why it's absolutely rubbish to have. That's also a skill for salespeople. Or put it on your roadmap, add it to your development, or add it to if your company is into buying other companies, add it to your wish list, if you will. But never ignore the things that you can't do.
Moritz, oh my gosh, I couldn't agree with you more. And if it's okay, you just reminded me of what the CEO of Adidas, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, what he said, and he said this: if you listen to your customer closely enough, they will tell you what your business is. I love that.
Yep, absolutely. So back to those basic soft skills: questioning and listening. And if you're good at those, you've got a fighting chance, that's for sure. Okay, so we started later. I don't know if everybody out there's got a little bit extra time to stay with us, so we can ask a couple more questions and then get a little bit more interaction with you guys out there. If there's more questions you'd like to start putting in the chat, that would be good. If there's questions you'd like to ask, specifically Moritz or Helga or myself, whatever, please feel free to do that. That's really important as we progress through. So Helga, you mentioned a little earlier about offering up a demonstration of how to do it. Are you absolutely sure you and Maritz are really up for this, or am I putting you on the spot? I mean, I've done it for years with students, and now with business salespeople coming back into the classroom. to do undergrad and postgrad degrees in sales, and it's great. They get a chance to try all this. There are peers all around them giving them constructive feedback, lights, camera, action. How do you want to do this?
Absolutely. So I definitely, let's invite somebody. I think I can't see it on my end because I'm the host of the technology.
I haven't had any suggestions come in at the moment, and nobody's offered up a.
So what I was going to suggest is, please, audience, be brave. On the participants box, I believe it is, you can put your hand up, and somebody, please, 1, 2 people, whoever, we'll pick one at random. Okay, we'll just pick somebody at random, and we'll do this exercise with you. Okay, we'll do it slowly. So somebody, please, put their hand up. Okay, and all we'll do is we'll ask you about what is it that you do, what's your product, and then Moritz and I will turn that into a value proposition. Okay, does anyone want to try that?
We have a hand. I see a hand.
You do see a hand?
Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is so good.
You want to and explain to Helga and Moritz and me a little bit about your business, please, Marta.
Okay, so I'm going to let Marta Andrade in to the meeting.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not a rehearsed, okay? This is completely live. This is what SalesShaker is all about. So, Marta,
hello.
I'm going to, oh, here we go. Hi, Marta.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you for putting your hand up.
No problem.
Right.
I want to take all the advantage I can from this meeting.
Good for you. Good for you. Tell us, what's your product? Hola.
So my kid is here.
It's okay.
Sorry. Well, I work I've been working on textile and footwear for 18 years now. So it's Portuguese textile has been growing a lot in terms of quality. We made a shift because when China started to offer their factories for big textile brands, in Portugal we had a lot of factories that went bankrupt, and the ones who survived have to make a big effort to be specialized. And now we have a great knowledge and great technology, very advanced technology in textile and footwear. So we are known not only by price, because we are not very cheap. We are the made in Europe, the made in Portugal product, but by the quality we offer, the flexibility, the better quantity. So I work specifically in a company that supplies uniforms and uniform solutions, also a software for aviation. Not a very good business at this moment, but 98% of our clients are airlines and ground handling companies. I also work with some cruise companies. I'm sales director there. And well, that's it.
Okay. So, okay, this is awesome. I love this example, Moritz. Thank you very much, Marta. So let me ask you this, right? I am on the procurement department of, you know, I don't know, Delta Airlines, and I need uniforms for my crew. Let's say I've got, I don't know, 5,000 employees. I don't know if this is a crazy number.
No, it's not.
It's not. Okay, good. 5,000 employees. And, you know, I've been speaking to quite a few companies at the moment. I have done some research, you know, I've looked online, and, you know, you called me up. What would you say to me? You'd say, hi, my name is Marta, and then what? What would you say?
Well, our sales proposition and the added value we try, and me and my team, to give to the customers at this moment, well, maybe the US is not the best example to give because it's a very big market, and well, it's not where I work, where we want to work even, because it's the quantities we will have to have all the Portuguese factories working.
So let's take KLM as an example.
Yes, for example, KLM for sure, or even...
I see where you're getting at. I already wrote down European-based, so I see where you're getting at.
Yeah, so maybe, for example, or Air Canada, it's a client that we are reaching now, and I was able to travel there in March, but then it was my last trip, so it was my last trip. Well, for sure, the quality of our product, the customization of our product. So we developed for each company, for each airline, we don't have a catalog. So for each airline, we make like a special project, because airlines have all to do with their special color, their special logo. I can give you an example. Austrian Airlines, we make their shoes and it's a red, and we also make for Virgin Voyages, it's another red. So, you know, we don't have a catalog. So it's all about customization. Make it special just for you.
So let me just stop you there, right? You're introducing yourself for the first time. Let's say we meet at a networking event.
Okay.
And I say to you, Marta, what do you do?
So I would say that we are a specialized company, specialized in the aviation industry. We have developed specific products for the harsh environment that all the crews face when flying, when ground handling. We make it customized to your needs, in terms of temperature, colors. We dedicate a special project from end to end, from design to prototypes to fitting, to make everyone look special and also healthy. Okay, we take care also of the health of the crews, because I don't know if you know, but Delta Airlines, for example, had a big problem with the fabric they chose in the last uniforms, and they had crazy rashes and big suits, because we also offer special and high quality fabrics to the airlines. It's working clothes, but you have to look nice.
Okay. So Moritz, would you like to start, or do you want me to start?
So I got a bit of an education on this yesterday from Helga, so I'm going to give it a go. Because we do hardly know cold calling or anything, so I made a mistake when I had to send a bit of an example to Helga in this regard. But what I would do in your case is you started out a lot with the how am I delivering, what am I doing product-wise, but you ended up only near the end saying what it is you actually do, and that is you make people look great and feel great while they're working for their airline. And that part, the looking great, feeling great, having a unique vibe. Hi, my name is Marta. I make the people that work for an airline look and feel great in whatever clothes they're wearing. We do this by offering high quality products sourced in Portugal, easily distributed throughout Europe, through the Schengen network, blah, 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 blah,
yeah.
blah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's turning it around a little bit.
Okay.
You nailed it, Moritz. You nailed it. I think, Marta, it's really so cool that you've offered this example, because what you've done there is what honestly 95% of people do. And I actually have to say, you didn't do too badly, because
I would buy.
Because at least you didn't do too badly, because you eventually got into the we also take care of the health and so on. But what I would say is this: imagine that you were saying this, okay? And I'm not in your industry, but the little bit that you've said, I think, has been quite revealing. But imagine that you were saying this: hi, I'm Marta, and we work with airlines that really want to stand out. We work with airlines that are having difficulty in sourcing amazing quality garments and uniforms that then I would use some kind of health terminology. I work with airlines that are having difficulty in customizing their image so that they give a different experience to their client, and they differentiate in their audience, right? So because what you've done, right, is what 95% of people do when they're introducing themselves. It doesn't matter whether it's on a cold call, on a cold email, or on social media invitation, or in person, or video. It doesn't matter, right? The message is the same. You started with the product, right? You started to say quality. Now, don't you think that all of your competitors are also going to say that they offer good quality?
Probably, even though they don't have it, probably.
They're still going to say it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So if you start talking about the quality, your customer is going to say, oh yeah, another one, another one that's talking to me about quality. Talking about quality is not going to make you stand out, right? Okay. What's going to make you stand out is you showing me that you understand my problem.
That we take care of crews, of course.
Right?
That's one of our pitch.
That's a good slogan.
But what's the problem behind it? Because, what are companies trying to do? They're trying to safeguard the health of their people by, by the type of garments that they put on their skin, right? Yeah. They're trying to reinforce their branding. They're trying to differentiate. I mean, Virgin worked very hard for that red.
Yeah.
But
their dream is that everyone recognize them when they pass by an airport. It's a dream of any airline.
So that's what you talk about, because just like Virgin, every single airline has got a dream, has got a problem, has got a risk, has got an opportunity, has got a result. That's what you're talking about, right? So when you're introducing yourself, I wouldn't start with the quality, because everybody talks about the quality, right? I would say, do you know that special red that you want to get to? We can do it. Get it.
Sure, and well, let me just I totally understand and agree, but let me just say that from my experience, it depends a lot on the markets. Okay, of course, for the US, for sure, but we work a lot with the Middle East, and they don't really care. Okay, we have to be quick. We have to go straight to the business part. And for sure, I know that in most of the countries, I would say 90% of the markets that we aim to get, from Europe to Canada and the US, for sure, it's an emotional pitch. But in Middle East, where we have most of our clients, for example, this is maybe why I started like that. It's a very product-driven culture, okay? And they are not even very emotional. So,
well, business
very different commercial.
Yeah, business is not about emotional. Try and do business in Northern Europe. In Northern Europe, don't you agree, Moritz? It's the same.
That's been probably the biggest surprise since we started using the Challenger method, which is a little bit what we're touching on here as well. One of the biggest surprises that we've noticed is that I expected a lot of people to hang up the phone pretty angrily as we started telling them about their problems. They don't. It's surprising how open they've been to this. However, Marta, I think important here is you're touching on subsegments of who you're selling to. An airline in the Middle East is not the same as an airline in Canada or in the US. Sure. You have a slightly different story. You don't necessarily talk about the beautiful color red or about that. No, you talk about indeed
saving costs.
What do we do? We get your people clothed quickly and at great cost. You can talk about cost. Price can definitely be an element, but it then needs
saving
to be
costs, not about the price, but the saving costs. Yeah,
exactly. It needs to be an inherent part of the product, but not an additional tool later on by saying, oh wait, no, we deliver great clothing and everything. Oh, and we can do it on a discount compared to the others. That's not where you want to go. And I know, because we also offer our solutions in Eastern Europe, we face this exact same problem. That's why our price point in Eastern Europe is different, because the market is different. And their perceived value of what we do is lower than our customers in the US or Canada or in Western Europe. And that's why we play with price, but never as a tool during negotiations or during the pitch.
Yeah, for sure. What we use a lot is that even if you spend a bit more, it will save you costs. Yeah. This is the only part of the costs we talk about. Yeah.
Okay. So I think Marta, it's a great example because we have culture rolled into all of this, and there is some good research on looking at different cultures around the world, and therefore how we need to do business with these cultures. And many of you on the call today will understand all of these things. You'll be dealing with Far East, you'll be dealing with America, whatever. And it's very important to factor that in. So I think it's a really important point that was raised there. But hey, getting the opportunity, even just for a few minutes, to do a very short masterclass in a face-to-face conversation is important. You can see the benefit, or I'd like to argue we can see the benefit if that was in a class of 10, 15 people, getting an opportunity to express and talk about what's important to them and how they approach their customers with regard to this value proposition. And then learn from each other and then share all of that. And you get ultimately then the best for yourself, I guess, out of all of that. So the learning points are immense. Okay, so I just wanted, we're getting very close to 11 o'clock, and I think we do need to bring it.
I think people are, I just wanted to thank again people that have had difficulty in logging in, and I wanted to thank you for really keeping there and sticking with us and participating. We've got a really great audience here, so really thank you again. The only thing I would say, I think that if people want to go for a break, they can. We're going to be having a session start at 11:35, which is about automation. Is the seller of the future a robot? Is the seller of the future a robot? So that's going to be great. But for those of you who want to stick around a little bit more, I think the three of us will be here. Well, three of us will still be chatting because it's the least we can do for, for keeping you, for getting late in and allowing you guys to, in having you guys logging in. Tony, I would only say that there's something that Marta said that also made me think, and Moritz as well, that I think it's also important to mention. Marta, very eloquently said that in the Middle East, things are a bit different and the clients are different. I mean, I've done business in the Middle East and I understand where she's coming from. And really just a piece of advice that I just kind of wanted to leave out there as just a general advice is that if you're the business, if you're the owner of your business, if you're the entrepreneur, if you're the one driving the strategy of your business, then you will know what concessions you want or do not want to do. For example, let's just say that Marta is talking to a company in Abu Dhabi and she's going straight to the cost and she's going straight to the price, for example. But then let's say a Chinese company is doing the same, right? Now, at that point, she or the company want to decide, do we want to compete on the price or not, right? Or do we at some point want to make sure that we know a little bit more about their business and about their problems and about other things that motivate them, so that if we do not want to lower our price because our quality is so much better than that Chinese company, right? Because we've done the discovery, we can position ourselves a lot better and we can compete at a little bit of a higher price. Now, I'm not saying that that's what she should do. I'm just saying that it might be something that you want to consider, right? Because if all that motivates that client, if the only thing that motivates that client is price, and if as a business you do want to compete with that Chinese company and you do want to grow your business in the Middle East, and you can drop your price at a profitability, then by all means do it. But all I'm saying is that you want to do that discovery, because clients don't necessarily tell you off the bat at the very first time. They don't really tell you all of what motivates them unless you do some clever questioning, right, Maurice?
Yeah, and it's not just that. The reason I love this is a lot of customers come to you with their perceived solution to the problem they're not telling you.
Yeah.
They're saying, this is what I need, but that's not actually what they need. A great example is we see a lot of corporate legal departments are demanding that their law firms use artificial intelligence. I can tell you, they don't really care. They don't care that they're using artificial intelligence. No, they want to work with law firms that understand technology and what it does and means. That's why they want them to use it. That's a completely different thing. And the same thing goes for this as well. And maybe I also want to thank Marta, because she was brave enough to step up and
brilliant. Well done, Marta.
out there. So that's really, really awesome. And it takes a lot of guts to do so, which is at least 50% of a great person is a lot of guts, I guess.
And also, Tony, we have a question from the audience, don't we?
Yeah, I'm just looking here, just finding a moment to get in there. Just Rodrigo, thank you, saying, is it the approach, do we try and recognize the pain points? And I would say, absolutely yes. I think as part of what, again, is being said, because all of these things interrelate in terms of the questioning, it may return us to the well-known questioning technique of spin, where we're identifying problems and then the implication of those problems by asking a buyer to sort of explain some of the difficulties they find themselves in, and then saying, well, what, if you were unable to fix that or sort that in the next few days, the few months or whatever, or in this way, what does that then mean to your business? And you're getting them to tell you more about what is truly their problems. It's back to what Maritz was saying, jumping in, the buyer maybe even suggesting this is what I need, but actually you don't have the groundwork, you don't have the backstory to that. You need to go back a couple of steps, and you've got to ask, I would argue you've got to ask these questions. So you're right, Rodrigo. Thank you, Fabros, for that. It is really important, because only when you find that pain point, I would argue, then you can even begin to think about a solution.
But that's, and one thing I would like to add to that is, don't just focus on the pain points. However, there's also the so-called gains that they would like to receive. I'm going to get Helga's example Marta's example so much easier than my legal software example. So I'm going to use that. Virgin doesn't have an issue with the color of their shoes. No, they want red shoes. They want the best red shoes. So that's a gain that they would like to have. It doesn't match to a pain point. They never had a pain point. It's not that they hate black shoes or blue shoes or whatever. No, they want to have a distinguishing color matching their uniforms for their shoes. So it's not just the pain points. Also look at the gains that they want to have, because there's a great story there, but they're much harder to define and find out.
Yeah. And actually, I would also add to that the following. And actually, do you know what? I'm actually going to try and say this and answer to Anna Silva's question as well. She says, how do you suggest we can describe our product and service differentiators, knowing that it must talk to the client's needs, not about our product and service? So what I would say is that before the better, there is one step that is better than asking your client, your prospect, about their pain points. There is one thing that is better, and that thing is to tell them what their pain points are, or to at least tell them some of what their pain points are. Now, let me explain what I mean, right? You have clients, let's just say you have some clients already. There is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't know what it is that you do for your client and what it is that you do for your client, that it's done in a different way from somebody else, from everybody else. There is no reason. And if you don't have clients yet, you can look online, right? For example, if you're thinking about opening a textile and footwear company, right? That's going to compete with Martha's, right? Then the first thing I would do is I would look at all of my competitors. I would look at Martha's company, and I would see that Martha is offering flexibility, customization, good competitive prices, quality. She focuses on the quality. She doesn't do products for everyone. She treats every client as a project, right? So if I want to compete with that, how am I going to be different from that? So learn to understand your clients' problems, your industry. You need to read about your industry every day. You need to be talking to customers and prospects every day. If you don't understand what problems you are solving, then, you know, how are you even in business? It's by luck. It's by sheer luck, right? So the reason why I say one step further is because of this. When you can start a conversation with anyone, and when you say something like, for example, oh, do you know, it's just so difficult nowadays for aviation companies to be able to stand out. I mean, look, I'm not talking about my product. Anna, did you see that? I'm not talking about my product. But look what I've just done. I've just asked a question that I know is going to lead the conversation to a differentiator. You see what I've just done there? I said, isn't it funny how difficult, how frustrating it is for aviation companies to, you know, to be able to stand out, to be able to, you know, align their brand with their uniforms. You know, isn't it difficult? And the other person would say, yes, you know, we're trying to find somebody that can match our red, and we can't find anyone, and we will not be happy until we do. Oh, really? Is that so, Mr. Richard Branson? Oh, how interesting. Well, tell me more. Don't even start talking about your product yet. Tell me more, right? This is what you're saying about understanding the pain points, right?
Yeah.
But I started the conversation already knowing what some of these, you don't need to know all of the pain points. You just need to know 1 or 2 or 5. And the more you talk to people, the more you know, right? And then all you need to do is you need to say 1 so that the other person can feel that, hey, this person actually cares about me and not about pitching their product. Anna, am I getting to your question now? Did you see what I've done? I just said, isn't it funny that, you know, aviation companies, you know, most people, they don't think that their uniforms, you know, that there's a health issue and that a lot of materials actually, you know, scratch the skin or cause emphysema or whatever it is, the illnesses that it can cause, or allergies. Isn't it funny how most companies just don't think about that? And I would say, oh my gosh, Martha, it's so interesting that you say that. And then the conversation is about that. But the way that I've done it in a way, I started the conversation in a way that can only lead to one place, and it's to my differentiators.
So
that's how you do it.
That's great, and that's the practical way of doing it when you're in situ. And you also mentioned, importantly, I think, Helga, that you need to do the research. So you need to do the work behind the scenes before you even get to that point. And it's great to be practicing it with peers, with others in your business, so that you can develop and improve. But I think it's important maybe just expand just slightly on some of the tools that can be used. You'll be familiar with many of them, and you're not needed to use these all the time. But for example, you would be familiar with the 5-force analysis. And if you're not, take a little Google at Michael Porter, Harvard business professor, and just click on there's a video, YouTube video, 2008, and he actually really in 15 minutes explains how you can get a grasp of your industry sector. And it's a great 10-15 minute video to listen to. And interestingly, and what prompted me to say it in parts was because he actually talks about the airline industry. So have a little look at that, Anna and Marta, or let me know if there's a problem getting it, and I'll try and access it for you. So I think it is important, and I just wanted to echo, I think, what's being said by Maritza and Helga in many ways, in saying you've got to get to the nub of what it is that the competitors who are in the business of doing your business or keeping you from doing your business are about. And you should be doing that little bit of research. And there's 4 simple questions you can ask. You know, what are the competitors' chief advantages? You need to understand what they're all about. What does the customer need now that cannot easily be obtained from the competitor? What is the beginning of a differentiator? And what would it take to persuade the customer to buy from us what they now buy from the competitor? And then maybe finally, in what areas of the customer's organization is such a change likely to happen? So where do I enter the organization to get the best traction to begin the conversation about the possibility of either doing business afresh or stealing business, getting business ultimately from some existing supplier?
If I may add 2 points to that, Tony. On the one side, it's the differentiators don't have to be real, and this is a little bit of a sketchy part in sales, I guess. But you can have the exact same product as your competitor, but if your story is better, if you differentiate in the way you tell your story, in the way you talk to your customers, that is also your method of selling, your method of delivery can also be the differentiator. Your product doesn't have to be different. Look wider than just a product. There is the way you build, there is the way you sell, there is the way you deliver. These are also places where you can differentiate. So that's something I wanted to add there. It doesn't necessarily have to be the product, because sometimes an orange is just an orange, right? It's not. Okay, well, maybe an orange from a certain country is better, We can have big discussions on this, I guess.
We'll start with some oranges.
I like my oranges generally if they're more in a drink or something. But anyway, another big important part here, and this is something that I want to give to people. Don't just start preaching value proposition to your team out of the gate. Be very aware that if you hand over a value proposition to somebody that's extremely junior and doesn't have the experience in using it, that it may actually cause more harm, because they might get bogged down in asking endless questions or starting to push for pain points, where really maybe the person on the other side has already shown that they just want to look at your product and then make a decision. So it's not a must do every single time. You need to still train your salespeople to have the empathy to know when to shut the hell up and just show a product, because it can be very dangerous. And I've seen this in action with junior salespeople that really don't get when they need to stop talking about the value proposition, stop talking about problems, and how we're solving that, and move on to the juicy part. Because at the end of the day, that needs to happen as well.
Definitely best to get to the juicy part of the orange, Maurice.
Right.
And Patricia is reminding us that there are beautiful oranges in the Algarve.
I usually go on vacation near Oljau, especially to play golf there, and I'm really sad because I'm supposed to go there tomorrow, but my tickets got cancelled, of course. So
I'm trying to get back to Portugal too. Please let me in. Please let me in. One point listening to what Maritz was saying there, I think links to what does a value proposing professional actually look like, because you're talking about the person really in front of you also. And I've got something here I'm just having a little look at. Maybe there's three things. Acting. So the salesperson's professional behavior is going to be really important. And that's something that I'm sort of passionate about is the professionalization. So the acting bit's important. I mean being authentic, I don't mean acting, playing a part. The seeing, how salesperson makes sense of the customer's world. We've talked a lot this morning about customer centricity and seeing it from the eyes of the other person, from the buyer, the customer opposite us. And then the speaking part, the way in which the salesperson communicates, encouraging dialogue through relational behaviors. And that then brings out three key things: trust, politeness, and honesty. So I think, there's another takeaway to maybe have a little think about. The acting, the seeing, and the speaking. These might be some of the important behaviors of a value proposing salesperson, professional salesperson. Lots to take in.
Lots to take in, and we're getting
lots of workshops.
Yeah, and we're getting lots of public audience participation. We've got here a couple of points. I'm sorry if I'm missing anything, but Manon actually makes here a really good point, and actually this just leads me. It was exactly what I was thinking, Manon, and thank you for making this comment, because I wanted to make a little follow-up to what Moritz was saying, and Tony, because they were both great points. Tony was saying about the questions that you should ask, in order, when you're talking about the value proposition. And I would just add one more, and actually this is quite an important one, and I'll explain why. Have you ever tried to ask to your prospect, actually, instead of asking, have you ever tried to understand, right, the answer to this question? What would happen if, right? What would happen if, and then ... What would happen if the client didn't use my solution? The client went to the competitor. The client did for themselves what we're trying to do. The client didn't use anything. What would happen? Because a very important factor behind buyer psychology, right? Apart from motivation, there is another thing. You need impact, right? If there isn't impact in what your solution delivers, as in, if the customer, if they didn't buy it, right? If they didn't buy, let's just imagine this. I am a KLM, right? And I see very little difference in having Martha's quality to having the Chinese company's quality, because I'm just not interested in quality, and I actually don't care if my employees, catch allergies. I don't care about that. That doesn't motivate me, right? The impact for me is very small, right? So that's not going to compel me necessarily to go for Martha's solution, right? But if the impact is bigger, for example, if I have employees leaving because they are, dissatisfied with the materials that they're using, if they're getting allergies and I do nothing about it, if my recruiting bills are higher because I'm having to hire and train more people all of the time, if my employee turnover is higher because of that, then my impact is a lot bigger. So I have more motivation to go for Martha's solution than anything else, because she's helping me to save costs in more ways that she can even think. So she needs to ask these questions. Everybody needs to understand, really, beyond the obvious, what are the implications? And this is a question that, we don't go deep enough. people don't really go deep enough, and you need to do proper discovery. You need to be very good at discovery. Now, Mano was saying,
I just want to pick up on two other quick questions, and then I think we need to close. We're getting very close to 11:30.
yes, yes.
So very quickly, yes, Mario, thank you, Mario Neto. Very important listening. Take a little look if, again, I'm sure you might be familiar, Covey's book on the 8 great habits of, and have a look at something called autobiographical listening. It's very interesting when somebody says to you, oh, I was thinking of going to Amsterdam for the weekend. And you, rather than say, well, what you immediately say, oh yes, Amsterdam, you must go to Maurits's place for the pâtisses de nata. Actually, what you shouldn't do is automatically take them. Thank you very much. I love them. It doesn't matter what they're called. They're beautiful. I eat them, lots of them. They make them here as well, sadly, but not as good as the Portuguese ones. You know?
Oh, they're terrible in Amsterdam.
Oh, absolutely. So, but instead of that, what's really important is that you say, why are you thinking of going to Amsterdam? What is it that's drawn you to Amsterdam? And let's not go there with some of the things that crazy people in Amsterdam do. But that's, you know, so that's what you should be doing. And that's autobiographical listening. It's a very interesting thing. We do it all the time in our private life and in our business life. We take up on somebody else's hook, and instead of asking a question to find out more about them, we want to talk about ourselves. And then just finally from me, before we close, unless there's anything else from the others, Manon, thank you. Also important, capacity to create relationships with potential clients that can be long lasting. And I think that's a really good point. And that's another model or another framework to look at, which is customer lifetime value, which is an extension really of what we've been talking about today. And yeah, when I was the Kinnerton sales director, Marks and Spencer, Tesco, Sainsbury, we would look into the future and try with a number of variables to see who were going to be our key customers in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, what we needed to do to achieve that, looking at numbers of variables. Okay, Maurice.
I would like to challenge that it's important to create a relationship, and this is a very unpopular opinion. And here's why.
This is the challenger sales pitch now.
Yes, sir. Here we go. So one thing I've noticed is that people that are really good at selling a product initially, so getting you a new customer, they don't really like doing all that relation-y stuff always. As well as the people that are really good at the relation stuff, they don't really like pushing a hard sale. Of course, they're not mutually exclusive. There are people that can do both at the same time. But we've noticed that ever since we split these teams up into hunters and farmers, we've had a lot more success. We have dedicated relationship managers. We don't call them account managers, relationship managers that manage the relationship with existing client. And we have on the other side, we have our hunters that are dedicated at selling our product, finding new prospects. There is, of course, a little bit of overlap, especially if you move into new geographies. It might be good to really keep that single point of contact relationship. But when you are more dominant in the market, you can hand it off. This doesn't fit every product. This doesn't fit every market, but there are other ways. I think the must-have of a relationship, and first building a relationship with your customer, it is the very traditional thing to do. You can't really go wrong. A lot of people still love it, but there are better, quicker, easier ways to do it as well. So I do want to challenge that perception a little bit, and indeed the challenger method is part of that.
And,
very interesting. And I'm just going to say, because I'm just prompting myself here really, take a little Google at Dixon and Adamson, and you'll find everything you need to know about challenger sale. And then you can decide whether you wish to challenge Maurice as to whether you actually think that is preferred over the relationship model, which has held us in good stead for very, very long. I think it's a mix of all of these things.
It is.
Absolutely.
May I just say, just very, very quickly, because Manon made this point, and I think it's a very good point. I'm going to absolutely agree with Maurice. Maurice, virtual high five to you. Virtual high five to you, because and I'm going to give an example. Okay, I'm going to give an example. Imagine, right, that Martha is talking with, she has a customer for 10 years, okay, virgin, and imagine that I now call them And I say, Richard, hi, how are you? I'm Helga from Lead Results. And listen, I've noticed that in the with the airline industries now with COVID, such and such and such a thing is happening. And as the economy recovers, one of the things that airlines such as yours are going to have to worry about is this and this and this. And Richard turns around to me and he says, do you know what, Helga? I never thought about that. Yeah, can we talk? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to give you some ideas about how it is that you can, overcome that problem. And he's like, do you know, yeah, I would like that. Now, Martha didn't tell me that. I get on really well with Martha. I love Martha, but she didn't tell me that. Helga did, right? And so what I wanted to say about this is that relationships are now basic. Having a good relationship and working at a really good relationship is now the basic start to a sale, not the objective. So Manon, you make a really good point. It's really important, and I completely agree with you, but let's just bear in mind that building a good relationship is a basic, is like air, water, earth, shelter, it's the basic start, not the end goal.
Okay, and thanks, Francisca, just for a little question there about hunters and farmers. So I've just sort of tapped back in there, have a look at, I should say Dixon and Adamson, not Damson, Adamson. Oh, Damson, jam, fruit, we're on an orange theme here. Dixon and Adamson tell you about the Challenger sale, and most sales books will contain something about the hunters and the farmers, those that go and do the business developing and those that look after the mature business and keep the relationships warm and keep the business rolling in. Thank you very much. From my perspective as moderator today, just to say thank you very much indeed.
Sorry, there's just a question from Francisca. Francisca, the hunters and farmers, Moritz, you're talking about the Challenger, right?
Right. But to be honest, we started doing this well before anybody brought us a book on the Challenger. But that was just when we were, before the acquisition by Wolters Kluwer, a young startup just doing whatever we thought was right.
You should have written the book, Moritz. It sold quite well.
Yeah, so it's called The Challenger. It's called The Challenger.
The Challenger.
By Dixon and Brent Adamson.
That's the one. Okay. Right. Where do we go from here? Because we're moving into another session, Helga.
So we've got another session coming up. We've got Pedro Morim, Pedro Borges coming up to talk about, and Miguel Arroja. They're going to be talking about, is the salesperson of the future a robot? Are we going to be taken over by machines? Moritz, what do you think? We're all going to be replaced by machines and by artificial intelligence. I'm going to love this topic. I can't wait.
You know what, as long as people still have empathy to listen and to react in the moment, I think a machine could be a great help, but will never replace a true salesperson.
Okay. I think automation is going to replace some lower level sales roles for sure. It's already happened in a number of sectors, but I agree with you. I'd like to think that some of the passion and the empathy and some of these other things we've expressed today might just hold us in good stead to keep us selling for a little bit longer before the robots take over. Okay, we're going to click through now to a little 5-minute video just to have a space between each of the sessions. So thank you again. Thank you, Helga. Thank you, Moritz, for answering all those questions and offering all of us such wonderful advice. Great to be in the room with you, and indeed all of the participants this morning. Thank you very much indeed for all your questions, all your participation. Keep the dialogue going. Sales is so important. It really does matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Moritz.